Welcome everyone to the State of Product Analytics webinar, hosted by Mixpanel and Optimizely. We hope you're all staying safe wherever you are in the region. We've got people joining us, some friends joining us today from Australia, from India, from Southeast Asia, and across North Asia. So we hope you're all doing well wherever you are in the region. My name's Scott Pugh. I lead the Asia Pacific region for Mixpanel. I've been with the business for about 1.5 years now. I'm sure all of you already know about Mixpanel, but yeah, we're a leader in product analytics. Essentially, we're the driving force behind event-based tracking for both mobile and app and web, and yeah, so we're really excited to for you to all join us for this session today. The agenda for today, we will be at Mixpanel. We pride ourselves on producing some great content and thought leadership content to be able to support the community of product leaders, engineering, marketing, and data, and we have a history of producing some really powerful content from the product metrics benchmarks, where we look at our 26,000 customers and look at specific data points within that. We also have a report around Guide to Product Metrics, which helps you define your key KPIs for your business. But today we're here to talk around the state of product analytics. This is a report we published recently and has actually been our most downloaded report today. So we're really excited to share the results from the report. We'd love to be able to do this in person. The benefits of being able to do it online is we're able to invite people from all across the region. We're also able to invite our global head of product marketing to share the findings, and he was really the brainchild behind this report. Once we go through that data, we're actually we will be joined by as I say, we're co-hosted by Optimizely, and in fact, Simon, I'll just pass over to you briefly to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Scott. Afternoon, everyone. Super happy to be here and be part of this webinar. Just to give you guys a background on Optimizely. You're probably familiar with the concept of A/B testing, which is where our business was actually born somewhat 10 years ago. Fast forward 10 years on, we're now really coining the concept of what we term as progressive delivery. So we're actually taking the practice of optimization and working with marketers and product people to allow them to deliver faster and better products and digital experiences through using our platform. So now I have a concept called feature rollouts, and we've actually married that together with experimentation to allow marketers and product people to make decisions based on data, and then use our platform to roll that feature, functionality, experience out to their wider group in a more controlled, risk-averse manner. So the product analytics piece of that is very important. Hence, we're super excited to be working really closely with Mixpanel in the APAC region. So yeah, thanks again for having us along today.
Excellent. Thanks, Simon. So Simon will be joining a panel which will be the bulk of the content today, along with Apinand Dabpetch, who is the head of product or head of e-wallet at TrueMoney, which is one of the leading fintech companies across Southeast Asia, and interestingly, the third largest bank in Thailand, and so we'll share a bit more about that. And we've also got Gorman joining us from Berlitz, who are one of the leading education companies globally. So excited for them to share their perspective on the state of product analytics within the Asia Pacific region, and then we'll be open for Q&A. So yeah, a few quick housekeeping. You will you'll be able to, as I said, we would love to run these events in person, but we still want this to be interactive. There's obviously a chat section which we'll be monitoring, and would love you to sort of share questions that we can both field around the State of Product Analytics report, but as well as to our panelists. I saw one of the questions were, will we be sending a recording? We will be, as well as actually a copy of the report to all attendees or people that were unable to join. I don't really need to go through the technical side. I mean, every one of you has been living in Zoom for the last few months. But you are automatically muted. So if you do need to go for a bio break or anything, I can assure you that you won't be exposed. There won't be all your microphones have been muted completely. So with that, I want to actually introduce a colleague of ours, Mr. Jeffrey Beckham. So Jeff actually leads our product marketing on a global basis. As I say, he's based in San Francisco at our HQ, and is the brainchild behind this report and all of the reports which we publish. Jeff actually was one of the was the top speaker at our company kickoff earlier in the year. That was before that was a time when we could once travel, and went out in LA. So really pleased that he can come and share the details of the state of product analytics report. So with that, Mr. Jeffrey Beckham.
Thanks, Scott. Hey everyone, I'm Jeff, and I'm really excited to be here to talk with you all. That is me in the picture you see. I just got a summer haircut and a shave, so same person, I promise. I really hope the session is going to be valuable. I'm going to walk through some data that Mixpanel collected on the state of product analytics in 2020, which will ultimately set the foundation for the panel discussion that'll happen right after me in about 10 minutes from now if I run on time. So quickly here, the data that I'm going to go through, it comes from a survey of 459 product managers and product leaders throughout the world across all major industries. You can see a couple of them listed here: consumer tech, e-commerce, finance, B2B, and so on. The ultimate goal of this survey was to learn how data is used in product development on a day-to-day basis. Ultimately, so that folks like you on the call here can benchmark yourselves and understand, are there ways that you could be more advanced use cases for analytics that you might not be thinking of. So in going through the results, I'm going to cover a couple things. I'm going to cover the types of data that teams use. I'm going to cover common metrics, and I'm also going to cover types of analysis as well as common barriers. So things like, you're not trusting your data or feeling like you don't have the expertise, and a couple tips for potentially getting past those. All right, let's do this. One thing I forgot to mention is if you have any questions specific to the content, don't hesitate to drop them in the Q&A panel, and we'll get time to answer them later. Okay, so the first question that we asked in the survey, it was intentionally broad to get the full picture of all the types of data that product teams use. Respondents were given the option to mark any or all of the options that you see here on the screen. And what the results show is pretty interesting, actually, is that the majority of teams, they use many different types of data. They collect feedback from their internal teams, their execs, their sales and marketing teams. They talk to customers, have real conversations. They use product usage data, tools like Mixpanel. They look at their competitors, what they're building, and they also run surveys of users and other things in the market. So ultimately, the point of this was to get the lay of the land. And even though Mixpanel is a product analytics company and we focus on this third row here of product usage data, I can unequivocally say that more data is better. The key is, of course, making use of the data and sifting through it and finding something that's actually actionable that you can use to make great decisions around your product. So going from there, a piece that makes this a little bit more interesting is beyond just the types of data that people use. We asked respondents to self-identify their level of expertise with using data in product development. So we asked, do you feel like you're a novice, intermediate, advanced, or expert? And when we mapped what people said they were in terms of sophistication against the types of data that they use, you get this really, really interesting trend on the screen here, where the more advanced folks get, the more they tend to rely on user behavior data from an analytics solution, which is something was convenient for us, of course, at Mixpanel, but also really fascinating. And it's ultimately asking myself, like, why is this? And I think when you look at the description of expert here, it's like decisions aren't made without being validated by data. You talk about what feature should I release, what experiment should I run, and so on and so on. You need the user behavior data to actually make decisions like that. And so when you look at the expert teams, that's something that they really rely quite heavily on. Moving next here is beyond just broadly the data. It's like, well, what is the data actually used for? So we asked the teams, what are the questions that you're trying to answer with the data that you collect, all those different types? And here you can see all of the ones that they selected in the rank order. And the good news here is that most teams are asking a lot of different types of questions. There's a great customer of ours, Indeed, a job search company, where he came to our all hands and said this quote that was simple but profound of the best product team to ask and answer the most questions about their users. And that's something that I think holds really true here. And so when you look at what's on the screen, the top things that most product folks are analyzing: which of my feature launches made an impact? How are my users navigating my product? What keeps people engaged? What's most popular? Ultimately, the more of these that you ask and answer, knowledge is power, right? The more you can know, the more you can learn, the more informed you'll be in your product development. And if there's things on the screen that you can't answer today, just a slight little plug is, using Mixpanel, Optimizely, and others, you can answer a lot of these questions with data. Okay. The next thing here that I want to get into is metrics, which a lot of folks find quite interesting. And most teams, probably all of you on the call here, have some sort of KPI dashboard. It ultimately helps you understand how your efforts are working, the big picture beyond just the types of analysis that you're doing. So the first thing that we asked was, what metrics matter to you as a product professional in your field? What are the things that you care about that you track? And you can see up on the screen kind of the rank order of what people said. And really no surprise here, the big three: retention, engagement, and conversion. I'm going to give you the industry breakdown in a second in the slide after this. But these are the classic, right? Acquisition, engagement, retention. Are people coming in? Are we acquiring them? Are they sticking around and doing things? Then ultimately, are they there for the long run? And then when you look at more of the long tail here, it makes sense why some of these are in the long tail of like activation, NPS. A lot of these, especially active usage, can be more of B2B metrics. And I think that's why they didn't get marked by quite as many folks. One I want to spend just a quick minute on here is revenue, because this is one that we talk about quite a bit with our customers of, is revenue a good product metric? And I would say maybe this is a bit bold, but the answer is no. Not that it's something you shouldn't track, but that revenue is ultimately an output metric. It's something that happens based on the engagement or the retention that's happening within your product. But by the time the person makes the decision to stay or go, pay or not pay, like it's kind of too late to do anything about it. But when you look at these other metrics on the screen, retention, engagement, those things, you can reasonably know that if someone's using your product a lot, watching a lot of videos, making a lot of transactions, depending on what your app is, they are likely to pay. And that means that you have a healthy app that's delivering a lot of value to the users that you have. Okay, so let's get to the industry breakdown. So when you look at it, it's still the big three that is focused on across each industry. So retention, conversion, or engagement. But it is pretty fascinating to see the difference here. Is it's not all the same, and a lot of the differences make a ton of sense. So if you think about B2B software, for example, that's one where you come in once oftentimes and you sign a year or a 2-year contract. And so conversion is something that's often owned by the marketing team, whereas we surveyed product teams. But retention is really the key here, because you have tens, dozens, hundreds of people on the software. Are they sticking around and using the product over and over and over? And ultimately, that's going to be the thing that dictates of, do they renew or not renew? And so product teams are laser focused on this. In consumer tech, think of this as things like food delivery, dating apps. It's really a broad swath here, but conversion, it makes a ton of sense. Are people downloading my app? Are they coming in and ordering or doing things, ordering that ride, ordering the bouquet of flowers to be delivered to their wife's work, whatever it is? Conversion is a key metric that people look at. And then in retail, same thing. And then finance, engagement makes a ton of sense when you think about banks, regardless of what your bank is. A lot of this is a companion app of, you have your money in there, but the bank wants to know of, Are you coming in? Are you checking in? Are you checking your balance? Are you making transactions? Are you taking out loans? The more you do, the more likely you are to keep the money in the bank and to stick around. Okay. One thing I want to get into just really quickly more on metrics is the things that I showed on the last couple slides, retention, conversion, engagement. Those are just pretty broad definitions. Like, what does that actually mean? And when it comes to your business, we run a whole workshop on this, by the way, called the Guide to Product Metrics. But just to get quickly in it, it's like conversion, you have to define specifically what that means for your product or for your app, just like with engagement and retention. And what we did here is intentionally, this is a very broad array of companies in different industries and different sizes, just so you can see the different types of metrics that are out there. So ZipRecruiter, it's a company that we work with, and they're a job search platform. They look ultimately at the percent of job seekers completing the application flow. If that doesn't happen, kind of nothing else matters within the product. Lemonade, an insurance company, they do homeowners insurance. So you want to insure things in your apartment or your house. They ultimately want to know people who view a quote for how much is it going to cost, do they purchase this or not? And those are the things that really matter to them. When you look at PrimePhonic, it's a music streaming service. So think of Spotify for classical music. They want to know, are you listening to a lot of things over and over? And they look at the minutes of media consumed. You know, Mixpanel for us, are people not just going and building dashboards, but are they going super deep? Are they analyzing the data and building filters and breakdowns and the things that really lead to advanced analysis? Because those are the things that we found lead people to stick around. And then this last example is a company called Patient Ping, who works with hospitals to coordinate patient care. And they ultimately want to know, are people within the hospital that use my app, are they coming back after the first use, which is an indicator that they'll renew the software in the long run. So perhaps these metrics that I put on the screen here are a bit of inspiration for you. And then as we follow up on this, we can send more information on metrics. Okay, the last thing I want to get into before we move to the panel discussion is barriers and challenges. So we talk through the data people want to use. We talk through the metrics that matter, the use cases and things they analyze. But you're likely all on this call for a reason, is it's just not super easy to do all of these things. And when you look at what are the barriers that different teams are running into, the first question we asked was just related to the metrics. Do you feel that you can measure the metric that matter to you? And actually, there's good news here, is most companies feel that they can measure the metrics. They can measure engagement, retention, conversion. Only 38% feel they're not to, but where it really gets interesting is when you dig a little deeper of, well, where are you stuck? When you actually want to understand the experience at a much deeper level, are you able to understand where users drop off and why? Are you able to understand what brings people back? Do you know about the customer journey end to end? Do you know if the features that you launch work or not, or make an impact on the experience? And so kind of the conclusion here is many teams understand, like, how am I doing? What is my retention rate? But when you get into, well, why is it up? Why is it down? What should I do about it? That's where it gets a lot more complex. And then last one here is, it's like, well, what's stopping you? Like, what is it about the data setup that's making this so hard? The number one thing is that I simply don't have access to the data that I need to make these decisions. And then the second one, which never great when this happens, is I can't trust the data. So you know, my role here is not to do a super deep plug on Mixpanel, other than to mention that some of these barriers that a lot of folks see, these are things that our product is designed to help with. So here is understanding all these questions. These are things that you could answer with Mixpanel. And then when it comes to these barriers, of course, you need the right setup and the strategy in place to make it all possible. But Mixpanel is ultimately designed to give folks on product teams who may or may not be analytics expert access to this type of data so they can do all these kinds of analysis to track their metrics and go super deep. All right, with that, I'm done with going through the data. Happy to take more questions that any of you have later, and I think we're going to move on to the panel. So back to you, Scott.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Jeff. Really appreciate you joining to share those data points. if we so I'd just like to introduce now the panel who can give a bit more of a perspective from Asia Pacific. Firstly, like to introduce Apinand Dabpetch from TrueMoney. Would you like to introduce yourself, Kundon?
Definitely. Thank you, Scott. Hi, so I'm Apinand, and I have been, let's say, growing the TrueMoney wallet since the beginning 7 years ago, from a few thousand monthly active user to today about 7 million monthly active user. And my role is still pretty much the same, being like the platform guy, central guy, business / product, doing whatever needed to drive the wallet to grow. Okay, for a comparison right now, if counting the number of users, we are about like the third largest bank in Thailand in comparison, right? So it has been a great journey, and Mixpanel has been with us since 5 years ago. And I have to say, I use Mixpanel about almost every day. It has been a great tool, and it has helped us a lot in growing to this stage.
Excellent, thanks, Kundoni. And yeah, it's interesting. Like coming from a fintech side, that the product's been launched for the past 6 years, but you've had analytics at the sort of very core from the very beginning. And really keen now to introduce Peter from Berlitz, who are actually, rather than a 6-year-old company, more like a 120-year-old company that is going through a digital transformation. So Peter, please introduce yourself and Berlitz.
Will do. Thanks, Scott, and thanks, Jeff, for taking us through that. It's great to see how other product teams are using data and the questions that they're asking around data use. My name's Peter. I'm Global VP of Product and Technology at Berlitz. There I run numerous cross-functional product teams across the globe. My job is to deliver scalable solutions and drive product best practice. For those that don't know Berlitz, Berlitz is a language and cultural training company. Right now we have 300,000 active students across 76 countries. And we've got many different learning methods that focus on kids and teens, adults, students, government, business. And we've trained many famous people. This is a little bit of trivia or just a little anecdotal sort of bit of information, but over our 140 years, 140, Scott, not 120.
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess once it's over 100, you kind of just stop counting, right? 140 years, we've trained people like JFK, John Lennon, Oprah, and there's a massive list which we're kind of proud of and like to talk about, but yeah, it's one of the largest language training companies in the world.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And it would be remiss for me not to address where we are in the world right now in terms of the COVID-19 situation. You are both coming from organizations within a vertical that you could almost say has been positively impacted by the situation that we're in, from the financial technology side, the concept of like cash is dead, and just the safety part behind it, and then from the education side, there's a real focus on self-improvement at the moment, and a move towards ed tech as a way to sort of engage and to learn. So I'm interested to hear from both of you sort of how the current situation has impacted your businesses, and what's the overall impact has been, and how you've kind of adapted to the opportunity and potential opportunity ahead of you. I'll pose that to you first, Apinand.
Right. So being a fintech company, you can imagine us being on the more fortunate end of the COVID situation, right? And we can see that we have been riding on the wave of cashless payment. Essentially, we have promoted as what everybody call the new normal, right? Cashless payment being more safe, more hygienic. So it's a new way to pay, right? Although most of the retail payment transactions have declined, but certain stores like the convenience store, which for example, 7-Eleven, which is our #1 merchant by a far margin, people, even if they are sick, if they can't go out, go to the mall, they still need to go to 7-Eleven to get their food and their daily needs, right? So we tap in there a lot, do several co-promotion with 7-Eleven, and it has drive us a lot in terms of monthly active user. We have grown about to 300,000 new monthly active user in the past few months, right? And also the challenge is that's from the retail payment. And second, online payment. You can imagine everybody going to online shopping and the new emerging trend of online delivery, right? Among the largest food delivery in Thailand, for example, GrabFood and Food Panda, we have partner with Food Panda and become their preferred payment channel. And lastly, we have launched new services, and here is how we need to be agile as we need to launch the service in record time to market. We launched COVID insurance service in a matter of about 2 weeks since inception, from ideation to talking to the insurance company to launch it in 2 weeks, right? And after this, I can go into detail on how we use analytics and data to do the proper adjustment and the proper improvement to after launch to make sure that it works. Right.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, it would be good to dig a little bit deeper into that specific example of launching a different commercial model based upon the current environment. And to you, Peter, you're Berlitz traditionally being obviously 140 years ago, there was no way to do online learning. And currently being from a traditionally in-person learning organization, you must have had to go through some pretty swift transformation over the last few months.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess because of that sort of traditional background, being 140 years old, our unique selling point or our product value is like face-to-face learning and customizing that education process. So we do have online options, but people come to us for that sort of face-to-face one-to-one experience. So yeah, COVID hit us pretty hard, like most schools, and being a global company, it kind of ricocheted around the world and hit us at different times. But just like schools, learning centers were closed down, so we had to react fast and move to online solutions for that. Scott, you mentioned at the beginning, we're going through a transformation, and I know transformation is a bit of a buzzword, or it's turned into a buzzword, but in the literal sense of a transformation, Berlitz is kind of rebuilding over the past 3 years. And we'd always planned in that transformation to move in an online direction, which wouldn't be changing our product, it's just an online option. And COVID kind of was the catalyst to push us forward with that much faster than planned. So kind of link this back to data and things. We had to move fast. We had to rely on the knowledge that we had from how products perform and where the opportunity is to turn them into online experiences so that we don't lose product value. But the unfortunate thing of that is we didn't get to kind of work the best practice that we like to, which is de-risking the business through experimentation, what have you. We kind of had to act fast and rely on sort of pre and post data to be able to attribute the changes in the business from those changes we made. But we did have positive, I don't know, results through the COVID period. So one, we were able to, like, we moved in a direction within e-commerce that we didn't necessarily have those capabilities around the world. So we're able to sort of target and focus more clearly. And within North America, who already had e-commerce, but with a more focus on online products, we had 80% growth in e-commerce sales through that period. And Brazil, through June, we've had 3 times enrollments from prior year, just with sort of changing our marketing initiatives and drive for online products. So I think it also comes down to people, like, what did you do in lockdown? People chose to learn languages. So we're fortunate that people are motivated and needed to fill time. And yeah, I think we ended up pretty good, but we did lose that attribution that we would have loved to have had given more time. But we're an agile business, and I think we responded pretty well to it.
Yeah, that is impressive that you're, even as a sort of like not being a digital first company, but being able to still be agile and make those changes and release those products on the fly. I wish I had learnt a language during lockdown. Spent most of the time drinking, but I won't get into that. So one other thing I'm really interested to discuss is just the I suppose the role of the product manager, and a lot of the people on the call are from product area, but we've got a range from data, from engineering, and from marketing, and I think that the US has kind of led the way in terms of, and it's stemmed largely from sort of digital first company of having the product role as like a very sort of like a CEO of a product and separate. And that I'm interested to get your take of running teams here in Asia Pacific, how the product role is defined within your organizations, and how you sort of structure your teams and collaborate across your the multiple different roles which sort of drive your product. If you could share from a TrueMoney perspective first, Kundoni, that would be great.
Yeah, sure, Scott. So I truly believe that the more digital the company or the more digital the service is, the more central role would a product take. But that product, it have to be, let's say, not a product guy. Let's say the more central the person with the product the person have to be with product mindset. For instance, I'm in the business domain, which is the best domain to drive the direction and the focus of the several projects. But I have a very strong product mindset because I was product at first, right? In fact, 5 years ago, when we were small, there is no distinction between business and product. The product is the business guy, and the business guy is the product guy, right? And take this example across other companies. I think many companies would be hard to find to differentiate between a person and a marketing person, right? Let's take, for example, an app that we know everyone would know because it's all across the region, Lazada app. The Lazada app, they have like the e-commerce flow, and they have the Lazada coins, right? And people come in each day and they view some product and they do something and they earn some of these coins. So I asked these are Lazada incentive, these Lazada coins, is this marketing work or is this product work? I would say the guy that designed it, built it, implemented, launched it, it's not a marketing guy, it's a product guy answering marketing needs, right? The marketing probably have some role in setting the goals, setting the criteria, setting the payout, setting the average budget payout that Lazada could afford. But in the end, the guy that makes it happen and design that it have to be like this, it should be like this. It cannot do that because that would not interrupt the user flow too much. that would be the product guy wearing a marketing hat, right? So I think this is an example of how a product guy in this day and age of the digital company would play a role in developing, in launching, in shaping the service the company makes.
Yeah, makes complete sense. I'm interested to hear your perspective, Simon. Obviously, Optimizely work with a lot of digital-first companies, and so with your exposure to companies across the Asia-Pacific region, how do you see the role of the product manager in the region here?
Yeah, so Kudam, I love that example of the Lazada coins, because we see a natural transition from marketing to product. So optimization has always been a marketing stand that we've seen, but what we're now seeing is the marketing and product roles almost like become completely separate. The rise of the product manager, but the coin example is an awesome way of how you guys are actually working together. So we're seeing businesses who are technically, you class them as digitally savvy or high growth tech businesses, start with product people and marketing people as actual defined roles. And then when I look at sort of more traditional businesses who are potentially looking at like the app, for example, as their main point of customer touch point, they're developing specific product teams to work on building out that app. So, we see this, especially in Southeast Asia, where the app economy is huge in comparison to Australia. We're a little bit of a laggard in terms of the app economy, but the types of businesses that are moving forward and using app, for example, are building out product teams separate to marketing. And then what we're also seeing is Pete, you talk about transformation as an annoying buzzword. There's also agile scrums. So we're seeing a lot of businesses now who are developing agile teams or developing product teams to work in agile sprints and using technology like Optimizely and Mixpanel to allow them to work in an agile manner. So we're seeing it across the board, both in traditional and digital, but I definitely think in the digital landscape, product people exist from the very start, and they're embedding the use of data within their culture to allow them to move faster, better, and more efficient. Is probably what we see.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. And Peter, I'm just interested, like within Berlitz, how you structure your teams there, and also really sort of like how you collaborate across those teams using tools and technology to be able to sort of fuel the data to be able to make decisions within those agile teams.
Yeah, so we fit into that sort of blended product and marketing sort of visual of the product team. So we sit within a global marketing team, and as I mentioned, cross-functional team. So within my team, I've got other product managers and developers, designers, and then we work really closely with technical SEO and brand and content and acquisition and things like that. But we're very closely, we're heavily involved, as you said at the very beginning, of sort of concept and things within the business to understand business need, business metrics, and sort of the horizon of what's coming, so that we can address that in the solutions that we're building, from like whether it's within marketing or around the business. So generally, when working with, say, the acquisition team, they might be running different campaigns and things, and we want to ensure that we're getting the biggest return or lowest cost per lead on acquisition through those campaigns. So we'll use data to understand the types of messaging to maybe build out information architecture and the messaging that we'll have. But we also go beyond that to make sure that there's a personalized component to it. So different keywords will drive different messaging on the website that reflect that keyword. So we do that through personalization and Optimizely. Looking at different mobile experiences, desktop. So all of that working from like collaborating with acquisition team within marketing, where we're sort of driving that solution design so that we're ensuring that the knowledge that we have in the product team is being sort of utilized in those campaigns. And that's just an example. Like obviously other requirements and business needs throughout the business, we do similar things. And our main goal outside of marketing is to de-risk the business, because generally like big ideas come through that need to be proven in market before we can sort of build out large epics and time sink into those big things. So we can start to look at ways of proving ideation in the market. Sometimes like you can do that again. Sorry, Simon, doing shameless plugs here for Optimizely, but there's an easy way of doing that with like painted door experiments where there's not necessarily a lot of time put into it, but you can run a simple A/B experiment where you can just engage the user to see what their interest is in a potential product or feature that you're looking at releasing. So you haven't really put in the time. All you're doing is a discovery, but you're not risking the business. You're not going to lose opportunity spending all that time developing on something that the customer doesn't actually need. So the way that product address data and delivery can be applied within the business, like or across the business. So it's very central and very important, which I'm sure is sort of preaching to the choir at this point on this call.
So Pete, it's and I guess back to Jeff's presentation earlier. You know, Jeff, your top metrics were retention, engagement, and conversion. And when you were going through those, even to the metrics below that, I see risk as a huge metric that companies don't seem to pay as much attention to. And Pete, you've given an example of mitigating risk, because yeah, it's great making all this money, but if you don't mitigate risk, there may be a chance to make no money. So Pete, if you like, it sounds like risk is something that you are actively working on at Berlitz. Like, would you have an example of, you know, how you've used analytics and experimentation on, you know, how to actually mitigate risk of such a quick digital transformation at Berlitz?
Yeah, so that's been probably I mean, this transformation that we've been working through, like I said, it's the true sense of a transformation. Everything is ground up rebuild, like from systems to platforms, like front facing, operational, everything. So there's a lot of moving parts, and the one thing that we don't want to risk is bringing in potential students through our funnel, so the marketing website basically. So part of this transformation, and one of the first initiatives was to rebuild the marketing website, bring it internal. There was a lot of external agencies and things, and make it a centralized platform that can scale with the company and be used as a framework and code base across other products. So that's all great. But then also on top of that, like we rebuilt the front end, etc. So we used data from the previous websites that are running. We got a good understanding of the different product offerings, the tone of voice and messaging that we want to use on site. Looked at the sort of demographics, the behavioral and geo sort of audiences that we've got across it. And from that, we used our sort of experience and best sort of interpretation of everything to build out a front end, which is as much as we call ourselves experts or what have you, it's still an assumption, and we need to prove that assumption. So even though we're confident that we're making the right decisions because we're looking at the data and it's telling us a story, we still need to prove that. And to the business, like there's a lot of risk in that. Like I said, like we don't want to sort of destroy that funnel that's bringing in a particular percentage or conversion rate. And so to go to market, even though we're confident in it, like even launching a website that looks fresh and shiny and new, we still want to test that and prove it. So just like sort of feature flagging, we go through a launch process every time we launch a new feature, but in this case, it's a full website. So we launched to 10%, 25%, and 50%. So at 10%, we want to make sure that the platform is working with real world traffic, and we're seeing sort of performance on page load, server response, things like that. Then when we go to 25%, we start looking at business metrics and making sure that we're converting on par or better. And again, also looking at performance, page performance and things. And then at 50-50 is when we're sort of road to the rubber and making decisions and understanding it. So the benefits of that through Optimizely is like we can kill it at any stage. There's no risk. We're easing our way into it. It takes a little bit longer, but you reach significance pretty quick when you've got that much traffic hitting it and the changes are that big. So yeah, that completely de-risks it. It's the easiest thing to sell into your company. You'll get buy-in immediately if you're talking about de-risking, and when you're ready to go to 100%, you've got a proven model that has X% increase. You've proved the platform with real world traffic, it's stable, and you just roll out to 100%. On top of that, you got so much additional insight from the experience that you can start making iterations and start running experiments from day one once it's 100%.
I think it's a really good example, Peter, and it just it shows that actually killing a product and finishing a product rather than having put too much effort into it is great. So just being able to, interesting, you do it 15, 25, 50 in terms of your rollout. It's really good to hear. One of the questions that, and we'll sort of move on to a bit of the sort of Q&A from people here, but one of the questions here was, like I'm a novice. This is from Tercia. I'm a novice when it comes to data and analytics. Could you share a little bit about product analytics tools like Mixpanel compared to tools like Google Analytics, for example? And I was you had mentioned one of the examples earlier, Kundoni, about the product that you've like actually released within this COVID period and the quick iteration that you did there. And I know that also you're a user of GA as well, and sort of and how use GA. It would be quite good to show, if you could show like the example of a product you launched within this period and how you use data and analytics to be able to adapt on the fly.
Right. And by the way, sorry for the housekeeping, but let me know if the background noise gets too loud. All right. Right. So a quick answer about the difference between Google Analytics and Mixpanel first is that you sort of need both, but I'm pretty sure 90% of the time you will spend looking at Mixpanel, because Mixpanel would tools like Mixpanel or Optimizely, it would look at users on a user basis, not in terms of Google Analytics, where it look at users on the traffic basis. How many hits, how many sessions, how many sessions to date, sessions that got progress to the next level in the funnel. But on Mixpanel, it looked at a user as a person, how this person come back, has this person perform many transactions, right? And so that's a major difference. And that's the key that Google Analytics is not going to come this approach because of the concerns on like privacy, user data, and they don't want to, mainly they don't want to store the user data, right? But now I'm going to give an example on how we use such user-based data to improve our newly launched product. I mentioned that in March, we quickly launched the COVID insurance product in a matter of 2 weeks, right? Right, because we didn't know before that the thing was going to be this big, or nobody does, right? And then so we have to beat the time to market to beat this time to market of the market that is predominantly predominantly owned by banks, right? So we launched it in 2 weeks, and only 2 days after launch, we noticed something not quite right about it. We get a lot of traffic. Users click into the button, but not many people buy the insurance, even though they have shown interest. So when we look at it, what we found is, I'm gonna show it here. It might not be the best, but it's the best right now. So COVID insurance, people click on it, and they will see this, and they will see this consent saying you agree to give your name, mobile phone, email, national ID number, date of birth to Tipaya Insurance Company to proceed with the transaction. And after people click accept, they would go to the insurance plans purchase to select what are the protection you need. What we realized in hindsight is that 75%, about 70 to 75% got scared of this thing. They say, I'm only interested in the I just clicked the button one time and you were asking for a lot of information. I'm not even committed to buying yet. So 70% of people drop off from this page, right? And it was, you can imagine it's quite a disaster, right? So what we noticed looking at Mixpanel funnels, right? And based on the cohort of the people who click the front buttons, right? So what we make a very quick change in about 4 days is that after the user click on the home screen, this button, we put an HTML page in front, very quick page built on WordPress, and it showed them the friendly looking design screen like this. Protect you and your loved one. This is a COVID insurance. Buy for yourself, buy for others. And by the way, on the next page, you will be given consent to the insurance company, but you can edit all your information and click to proceed. And click here, and then people will see the consent, right? And just by putting a customer-friendly notice, customer-friendly HTML page like this, we reduce the drop-off from 70% to about 70% drop-off to about 45% drop-off, right? So, and we did this huge huge in terms of result, this improvement in a matter of like 3 days after launch, right? And we are still in time for the COVID insurance market, because it took about 3 weeks where the customer is interested in this all COVID insurance thing, right? And after this, our president was quite mad. Like, why is it, okay, it makes sense that the customer got scared, but why is it there in the first place? So we were all like, the legal said we have to do it, right? So, and afterwards, we took this as a basis to talk with legal, right? Because the moral of the story is, if something go wrong with your product, first blame legal if applicable, right? But then,
legal I like to describe them as the sales prevention team. Right. Yeah.
Blame legal and compliance if applicable, right? And when you blame them, the key here is, if we go to them with nothing that, oh, this is the flow they are going to do press down the strict interpretation of the law. But if you have a basis like this, a verified, quantifiable basis that tell them that this will cause 70% drop off, and we have data to prove it. Most legal team, no matter how strict they are, they will back down and try to find an amendable interpretation that is also friendly to the customer, right? So you have to show them a quantifiable consequence, right? And this is what we learned from this period. And and we use analytics tool as a core to back us up like this.
Scott, I'll probably,
that's a
jump in
example
quickly as well. You know, what we see from a technology standpoint is that pretty much every organization runs Google Analytics as they should. But I think when you reach a certain level of maturity, and then you want to start integrating data across touch points, across technologies, like, you know, Mixpanel to Optimizely, to Segment, to Telium, whatever it might be, when your business starts to look at automation, that's where I feel a lot of companies will progress from the likes of Google Analytics to Mixpanel to then use that data to execute more effectively, because there are the APIs that connect these different technologies together. So I think the Google Analytics story does have a maturity side to it as well. Great place to start, but I think as businesses mature, they will look for more and deeper analysis from the particular tool. We see that a lot.
I'll say this really quickly as well, just conscious of time. The big difference as well is Google being sort of an audience sample of the behavior on your website, whereas as tools like Mixpanel is event-based and drilling into the individual user, so you can start to build out lookalike audiences and things, and really see where the attribution and performance is coming from, rather than sampled information.
Yeah, completely. And I think, Kundani, like in terms of what you would use, like it can be a simple sort of funnel that you would use an analytics tool like Mixpanel, but the impact to business and being able to drive decision making is so critical. And that kind of leads to like a bit of a closing question that we've got here that I might ask you to address first, Peter, is what's your from the Q&A is what is your advice on increasing data literacy across the business, especially the product team? So how would you advise about forcing or encouraging the business become more data driven?
That's one of the benefits we have as a product team. Like you've got control of creating quite a bit of excitement within the business, and so one is like providing good data from good decisions. So you can communicate that way, but I guess one of the to encourage that is making data accessible. Often data is sort of stored away in a warehouse, and you need some sort of degree in SQL querying to be able to dig it out. So I think just making it more accessible, interfaces to be able to pull it out, and just common understanding of the sort of terminology within your business for KPIs and knowing what you're looking for. I think the accessibility of the data itself is probably the best or the first place to start.
We just like the key point in this, Scott, is not to make it scary. Like make it simple, consumable, and regularly communicate if it's via a newsletter or whatever it needs to be, but it's just simple and regular to allow people to understand the data, and they'll start using it more. Simplicity is key for this, I think.
100% agree.
Yeah, I agree on the accessibility there, right? But not just in terms of like granting access to certain tables, right? But in terms of, do they know what is the variable name, what is the event name, what is the property name, right? For example, for any complex product, we would have like in TrueMoney, we have like 60, 70 events, each have like 3-4 properties in them, and it quite overwhelm the user. So they would just have several of the product or the business guide. They would just go back to writing queries on Tableau or writing on Google BigQuery, right? So I think it's about taking doing a good data dictionary and promoting it to them, and looking at, hey, your job of, instead of doing a few hours query, if you use this and do like something like this, for example, on Mixpanel, create a cohort and filter by this cohort, it will take you 5 minutes. And here's an example. here's an example as a Mixpanel link, and here's the data dictionary of the events and the property name you need, right? Because and if you do this over multiple times, they will see that they will not waste like hours of their life writing queries, right? So I think that's a good way to encourage them, right?
I think that's very well put there, Apinand. Like hashtag no SQL. I know some people love it, but the people that like wasting time as well. No, I think that was a really informative session. We're at time now, and so Apinand, Peter, Simon, thank you very much for joining. Jeff, thank you very much for staying up late. I see that Jeff's been answering a few of the Q&A that we weren't able to cover in the on the panel. Love to keep the conversation going. Please follow Mixpanel on LinkedIn and look out for some of the panelists, and you can and follow them across socials. We'll share afterwards the report on the state of product analytics and some information about A/B testing and also about the product analytics as well. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. Wish you a good afternoon, evening, or rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, everyone.
For organizing fun events. Bye.